I like big motherfuckers. Big eyes, big lips, big house, big cars, big Bentleys, big rims, big everything. I like a big shit. Big nose, big clothing, big chains, big ass. I'm a big time drug dealer. Everything big, motherfucker. We like that shit big, man. Big is better.
What the hell did I just watch? That was my first thought when I saw this as a little kid. I didn't know what I was looking at. All I knew was that this person had uploaded a bunch of videos to YouTube, and each one was more ridiculous than the next, where he would basically answer questions stereotypically to questions that were also stereotypical in nature. Asking, why is it that black people are always late?
What the fuck I need to be early for? I'm late to work. I'm late to the barbecue. I'm late to the play. I'm late to the birthday party. I'm late to school. Shit, I'm late to the funeral.
Why do black people love fried chicken so much?
I know black people eat chicken. Niggas always gonna have a problem with niggas and chicken and shit. I like chicken. That's the most unbelievable bird in America. We love chicken. Chicken with fries, dinner with toast chicken, popcorn chicken, chicken fried rice, chicken burger, chicken sausage, chicken pot pie, fried chicken, baked chicken, roasted chicken, chicken salad, chicken french fries, chicken pizza, chicken ramen noodle, maybe some chicken and beer. Chicken everything, man. How can you not like chicken?
And the list goes on, just ridiculously stereotypical questions with even more ridiculous and even more stereotypical answers. Now, what I didn't know at the time of watching this is that this had a larger message. It was supposed to be a satirical art piece that drew attention to the N-word and the use of it and the negative depiction of black people in order to drum up attention for this video series as well as their movie, which was called N-word the Movie. Now, what the movie aimed to do and what they said they would do is that it's going to be a movie that delves deep to analyze the origin and the contradictions of the N-word. What constitutes one as being an N-word? Is it a racial slur? A term of endearment? FD Entertainment examines many cultural perspectives to understand the meaning, context, and power of the term dun dun dun. Now, ironically, they never finished the movie, and the only thing they ever produced were these ridiculously racist pieces of media. Now, ironically enough, again, I've seen these videos reposted to 4chan and other message boards used in a racist negative character and context. The idea being that they use this to bolster the opinion that black people are what this person is saying they are, a negative stereotype and nothing more. Now, this raises a very large question of what happens when your art reaches the unintended audience. This is extremely dangerous when it comes to cases of satire. And what made me think of this video and kind of go back and revisit it is because I recently watched a video by John Lewis talking about how the Boondocks were anti-black. Despite being the Boondocks were pretty much a generational show, pretty much everyone I know liked it growing up, they had ridiculous characters, they had ridiculous stereotypes, and in general, if you were going to say the Boondocks were pro or anti-black when it comes to black political thought or black messaging or the image of black people, it's more so negative than positive. Now, granted, a lot of what was in the Boondocks was satire, but what happens when the audience doesn't know that or doesn't care to know that? What if they just watch it and laugh at it because they think that that's what black people are, a bunch of ignorant people that do ignorant things and it's funny to laugh at? And I think that this is extremely difficult to approach. This is something that Dave Chappelle had mentioned in the past, where on his show he would try to have bits and sketches where he would use blackface or something extremely racial, and people would laugh and people would laugh at it, and he would wonder to himself, do people get the message? Do they understand that this is satire, that this is ridiculous, or are they just laughing at it because they think it's funny that blackface is hilarious? And it's a legitimate question, and it actually opens up a question of how strong does your audience need to be in order to digest satire. Satire is something that is pretty fine-tuned. It, depending on the audience, something that can be deemed satirical can literally have the opposite effect because people literally avoid the satirical aspect and embrace the caricature. What is the difference between someone putting on blackface and singing Mammy today versus someone putting on blackface and singing Mammy in the 1950s? In the 1950s, people would think of it as being hilarious, making fun of black people. That's who they are. Blackface, big lips, big nose, ugly creatures that we laugh at. because we're white, we're right, and we like to make fun of that. Today, it would be seen as cutting edge, satirical, and extremely edgy, but the audience would understand that the joke was not that black people look like that. The joke was, at some point in time, people had laughed at that thinking that's what black people look like. But again, just the fact that there's an explanation makes this more difficult. It's kind of like a composite function in algebra, where in order to understand the full scope of it, you not only need to solve a problem, you need to understand that there's another problem to be solved. And again, this raises a concern when your audience is ignorant and all they do is just digest what you're pushing out there. Now, I think what's interesting about this is that this movie had aimed to capitalize on what was at the time a very volatile period when it came to language in America, especially around the N-word. So for context, the reason why they even did this and the reason why they thought there would be attention towards it is because in 2007 and 2008, there was a lot of public outcry about the use of the N-word. And not only was there a lot of public outcry, there was a lot of political stances that were taken against it. The NAACP actually held a funeral for the N-word, saying that the black community should retire it, no longer use it, and say that anyone who does use it is basically perpetuating negative stereotypes and negative ideologies. Of course, this did not stick around as rappers continued to use it. Young people still used it. A subset of culture still used it. And it was basically something that people had just avoided. Granted, there were some changes. A big change was that before 2007, the N-word was allowed on the radio. The FCC did not bleep it, blur it, or censor you. After 2007, that did change. Not only did that change in 2007, but in 2007 and 2008, political correctness started to become a little bit more mainstream, where a lot of black communities came together and said that we don't want to hear these racist terms anymore. And at the same time, a counterparty came together to say that it's freedom of speech, it should be allowed. And there was some discussion around this. As a matter of fact, if you look at the movie's original YouTube channel through the archive image viewer, you can see a pretty good idea of why they did this and why they essentially approached this, because there was a lot of discussion and information surrounding this word, its use, and a powder keg moment that really blew this all up for pretty much America, and to this day has been a conversation piece, and that would be the Michael Kramer explosion.
Oh my God.
All right, you see? It shocks you to see what's buried beneath your stupid motherfuckers.
It was a moment where the comedian from Seinfeld got mad that a black audience member was heckling him. So instead of him telling him to shut up, saying a joke, or moving on, he then started to berate the person using negative and extremely racist imagery, as well as using the N-word in a hateful way. Now, what the media did in order to combat this is that they picked an easier battle. What Kramer said was actually pretty distraughtful and pretty disgusting, where he had said that if this was the 50s, you would be strung up and hung right now. You are a blank. Now, the media, knowing that racist ideologies are hard to contain and hard to address, they decided we're just going to focus on the word. We're not going to focus on the context. We're not going to focus on what happened here. We're just going to focus on the word. And they decided to try to drive that word down and say that it should no longer be used. Now, this was a 50-50 split between actually being the right thing to do, to be a little bit more considerate to people and be a little bit more respectful, and also the wrong thing to do because it was addressing a piece of the problem and not the whole problem. The problem wasn't necessarily just the word, it was how the word was used, how the ideology is formed, and where it exists in the context of that. Now, with that all being said, it created a ripple effect where in American politics as well as public media, people had now started to take more notice of words that are used when it came to this topic. At the same time, Asian Americans started to rally around words such as GOO, as well as other communities coming together to say that they don't want to be negatively represented either. Eventually, this culminated in the modern day where most things are taboo, as well as censored and not allowed in media, rightfully so in some cases, and in other cases, it's just due to just the continued practice of being overly cautious to avoid a happenstance or occurrence of what had happened in the past. Now, what's interesting about this, I honestly don't know if this movie had completed, if there would be any type of significant outreach that would have happened. It would have at least been able to complete their message, because unfortunately for them, they started off with extremely stereotypical videos. They started off with essentially trying to rage bait people into looking at their movie, and then never completed it. It's kind of like starting off a knock knock joke and then just leaving it open-ended. At no point do you ever get to close it and conclude it, and even worse, you don't get to show that you had a completely different statement that was coming at the tail end. Now, I honestly don't know how most people would react to this movie had it had been created today. It might be seen as cutting edge and edgy and amazing, or it just might be another satirical art piece that lands in the wrong audience, is used for the wrong reasons, ends up being hated as opposed to being loved, and not only does it not accomplish its original goal, but it creates a completely disgusting and different discourse than it had originally intended.